The fluorescent lights of Supermercado San Miguel cast their usual harsh glow over the checkout lanes as Carmen Delgado began her evening shift on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday in March 2019. At 42 years old, Carmen had been working as a cashier at this neighborhood grocery store in Madrid's working-class district of Carabanchel for 8 years, and she prided herself on knowing many of her regular customers by name and understanding their shopping habits and financial struggles. The store served a predominantly lower-income community where many families carefully counted every euro before making purchases, and Carmen had witnessed countless heartbreaking moments when customers had to put items back because they couldn't afford their entire grocery list. As the afternoon wore on, Carmen noticed that her checkout lane was busier than usual, with an unusually high number of families making larger than normal purchases. What struck her as particularly odd was that many of these customers seemed surprised and emotional when they reached her register, with several breaking into tears of relief after checking their receipts. The first unusual incident occurred around 4:30 p.m. when Maria Santos, a single mother of 3 whom Carmen knew struggled to make ends meet on her cleaning lady salary, approached the checkout with a cart full of groceries that Carmen estimated would cost at least 150 euros, far more than Maria's usual weekly budget of 40 to 50. When Carmen began scanning the items, she expected to see Maria's typical anxiety about the total cost, but instead, Maria seemed unusually calm and even happy. "Maria, this is quite a big shop today," Carmen commented as she continued scanning items. "Are you celebrating something special?" Maria's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Carmen, you're not going to believe what happened. I was in the produce section trying to decide between buying fruit or vegetables because I couldn't afford both when this man approached me. He was wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, and he spoke with a slight accent. He said he noticed I seemed stressed about my shopping and he wanted to help." Carmen paused her scanning, intrigued by Maria's story. "What kind of help?" Maria could barely contain her excitement. "He said he wanted to pay for my entire grocery bill, whatever it cost. I tried to refuse because I don't accept charity, but he insisted. He said it wasn't charity, it was one person helping another, and that someday when I was in a better position, I could help someone else. He gave me his credit card and told me to shop for everything my family needs for the next month." Carmen looked at the credit card Maria handed her. It was a black American Express card with a name she couldn't quite make out, but it was obviously an expensive, high-limit card. As she processed the payment for 187 euro, Carmen watched Maria's face light up with relief and gratitude. This was enough groceries to feed her family properly for weeks, including fresh meat, fruits, and vegetables that were usually luxury items for their household. The second unusual transaction occurred 30 minutes later when elderly Jose Fernandez, a widower living on a small pension, came through Carmen's line with a cart that was completely uncharacteristic for him. Jose usually bought only the most basic necessities, bread, milk, a few canned goods, spending no more than 20 to 25 per visit. Today, his cart contained premium cuts of meat, fresh seafood, expensive olive oil, wine, and gourmet items that Carmen had never seen him purchase. "Jose, what's the special occasion?" Carmen asked, genuinely curious about his sudden change in shopping habits. Jose smiled more broadly than Carmen had seen in years. "Carmen, I met an angel today. A young man saw me in the meat section looking at the prices and walking away empty-handed because I couldn't afford what I wanted. He came up to me and asked if I was having trouble deciding what to buy. When I explained that I wanted to cook a nice meal for my late wife's birthday tomorrow, but couldn't afford the ingredients, he insisted on paying for whatever I wanted." As Jose continued his story, Carmen realized that this was the same mysterious benefactor who had helped Maria. "He told me that good food brings joy and memories, and that everyone deserves to honor their loved ones properly. He gave me his card and told me to buy everything I needed for a feast that would make my Rosa proud. Carmen, this man didn't just pay for groceries, he gave me back a piece of my dignity." The pattern continued throughout Carmen's shift, with customer after customer arriving with fuller carts than usual and emotional stories about being approached by a generous stranger who insisted on paying for their groceries. By 8 p.m., Carmen had processed at least 15 transactions using the same black credit card, with purchase amounts ranging from €75 to €300, depending on each family's needs. The stories were remarkably consistent. A young man with an accent, wearing casual clothes and sunglasses, approaching customers who seemed to be struggling with financial decisions and offering to pay for their entire grocery bill. Around 8:30 p.m., Carmen was approached by Luis, the store's night manager, who had been monitoring the unusual activity throughout the evening. "Carmen, we need to talk about these credit card transactions. Corporate called because they've noticed an unusually high number of large purchases on a single card today. They want to make sure there's no fraud involved." Carmen explained what had been happening with the mysterious benefactor, and Luis listened with growing amazement. "You're telling me that one person has been going around the store all afternoon paying for random customers' groceries? That doesn't make sense. Who would do something like that?" Before Carmen could respond, she noticed a man approaching her checkout lane wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a simple black jacket. He was pushing a small cart with just a few personal items: bottled water, energy bars, and some basic toiletries. As he got closer, something about his posture and the way he moved seemed familiar, though Carmen couldn't immediately place why. "Good evening," the man said in accented Spanish as he placed his items on the conveyor belt. "How has your shift been tonight?" Carmen looked at him more closely, noticing the expensive watch on his wrist and the quality of his seemingly casual clothing. "It's been very interesting, actually. We've had a lot of happy customers today thanks to someone's incredible generosity." The man smiled slightly. "Is that so? What kind of generosity?" Carmen decided to be direct. "Someone has been paying for families' grocery bills all afternoon. Are you that person?" The man paused, seeming to consider his response carefully. "What makes you think I might be?" Instead of answering directly, Carmen asked, "Can I see your credit card?" The man reached into his wallet and handed her the same black American Express card she had been processing all evening. As she looked at the name on the card more carefully under the register's light, Carmen's eyes widened in shock. The name read, Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro. Carmen looked up at the man's face, studying his features more carefully despite the sunglasses and cap. Recognition hit her like a lightning bolt. She was looking at one of the most famous people in the world, but he was dressed like any ordinary customer and had been quietly helping struggling families all afternoon without seeking any recognition or attention. "You're Cristiano Ronaldo," she said quietly, not wanting to attract attention from other customers, "and you've been paying for people's groceries all day." Ronaldo nodded, placing a finger to his lips to indicate he wanted to maintain his anonymity. "Please don't make a big deal about this. I was shopping for a few things when I started noticing how many families were struggling to afford basic necessities. It bothered me to see people having to choose between buying food for their children or paying other bills. I decided to help as many as I could." Carmen was stunned by the casual way he described what amounted to thousands of euros in charitable giving. "How many families have you helped today?" Ronaldo thought for a moment. "I stopped counting after 30, but it's been several hours. Maybe 50 or 60 families. I've been trying to identify people who really need help. Parents with young children, elderly people living alone, anyone who seemed to be struggling with difficult choices about what they could afford." As Carmen processed his own small purchase, she realized the magnitude of what she had witnessed. "This must have cost you a fortune. Why would you do something like this without any publicity or recognition?" Ronaldo's response was simple but profound. "Because these families needed help, and I was in a position to provide it. Sometimes the most meaningful actions are the ones nobody knows about. These people weren't asking for charity. They were working hard and doing their best to take care of their families. They deserve to shop with dignity instead of stress." Carmen handed him his receipt, still processing the extraordinary situation. "The people you helped today, they have no idea who you are, do they?" Ronaldo shook his head. "Most didn't recognize me, and I prefer it that way. I wanted them to focus on the help they were receiving, not on who was providing it. When people know you're famous, it changes the dynamic and can make them feel uncomfortable about accepting assistance. As Ronaldo prepared to leave, Carmen felt compelled to say something about what she had witnessed. "What you did today will change these families' lives. Maria Santos told me you paid for a month's worth of groceries for her 3 children. Jose Fernandez was able to buy ingredients for a memorial dinner for his late wife. You didn't just pay for food, you gave people hope and dignity." Ronaldo smiled genuinely for the first time during their conversation. "That's exactly what I hope to accomplish. Everyone deserves to feed their family properly and to feel secure in meeting their basic needs. If I can help with that, it's money well spent." After Ronaldo left the store, Carmen spent the rest of her shift thinking about what she had experienced. She realized she had been working the register during one of the most extraordinary acts of anonymous generosity she had ever witnessed. Over the following days, Carmen continued to see the customers who had benefited from Ronaldo's generosity, and their gratitude and improved circumstances were evident. Maria Santos returned the following week and mentioned that having a month's worth of quality groceries had allowed her to save money for her children's school supplies. Jose Fernandez came in regularly and always mentioned how meaningful his wife's memorial dinner had been, made possible by the stranger's kindness. The story might have remained Carmen's secret forever, but 3 months later, during a local news segment about rising food costs affecting Madrid families, Carmen was interviewed about her observations as a cashier serving a working-class community. When asked about the most memorable day of her job, Carmen found herself telling the story of the mysterious benefactor who had helped dozens of families in a single afternoon. Although she didn't initially mention Ronaldo's name, her description of the events was so detailed and compelling that it quickly gained attention on social media. Eventually, after several weeks of speculation and investigation by local journalists, Carmen decided to reveal the full truth about what she had witnessed. She felt that Ronaldo's actions deserved recognition, not for his benefit, but to inspire others to consider how they might help their communities in similar ways. When contacted for comment, Ronaldo initially tried to downplay the story, but eventually acknowledged that he had indeed spent an afternoon helping families with their grocery expenses. "It wasn't planned," he said in a brief statement. "I was doing my own shopping when I noticed how many people were struggling to afford basic necessities for their families. I was fortunate to be in a position to help, so I did." It's really that simple. The revelation about Ronaldo's grocery store generosity inspired a wave of similar charitable acts throughout Madrid and beyond. Other wealthy individuals began quietly helping families in grocery stores, and several corporations initiated programs to provide food assistance to struggling families. Carmen's grocery store even established a discretionary fund that allowed managers to help customers who were having difficulty affording their purchases. Carmen herself became something of a local celebrity for her role in revealing the story, but she always emphasized that the real hero was Ronaldo and his willingness to help others without seeking recognition. "He showed me that true generosity doesn't need an audience," she would say in interviews. "The families he helped that day will never forget his kindness, and neither will I." Years later, Carmen still works at the same grocery store and continues to serve many of the same customers who benefited from Ronaldo's generosity that day. She often reflects on how a single afternoon changed her perspective on the potential for kindness in the world and the difference that one person can make when they choose to act with compassion and generosity. The black credit card transactions from that day became legendary among the store's staff, representing proof that extraordinary kindness exists and that sometimes angels do walk among us, wearing baseball caps and sunglasses, quietly changing lives one grocery bill at a time.